Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank our panel. You have been terrific. And anyone that wants to jump in and answer this question is, what if wherever they come from, somebody is in Minot shutting off the missiles? Why? I mean, is that to show us that they can do that? Is that, why would you do that?
First of all, the world is facing a crisis right now about nuclear weapons. I don't have to remind you about
Right.
Those possibilities in countries that are trying to acquire nuclear weapons. We have enough, and we've had enough nuclear weapons to destroy every living thing on Earth for a long, long time.
Right.
And it would not take much to start a nuclear war, in my opinion. And that risk is getting worse. So I do believe that, and I think they are extraterrestrial, and this is just my opinion, that they are here to at least point to the fact that we are on the verge of annihilation, of suicide, if you will, our own civilization. And they would like to see us get rid of these weapons. And that's the message I got from my incident. That's my own conclusion.
Okay.
That this was strictly a message. Get rid of your weapons. Get rid of those nuclear weapons. They are not weapons of war, by the way. They're weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
They would never be used in a real war because it would just be a complete suicide for civilization, like I said.
But I'm concerned that they're trying to tell us. I don't quite totally agree with Bob, but I do agree with
That's
him.
okay.
I think they're at least trying to tell us that pay attention. You know, we have the power to do this. Be careful. You know, and one of my, I've got scenarios in my mind I've thought about this an awful lot. And one of my scenarios is perhaps, in fact, they've communicated with the leaders of the world and said, back off from this stuff, or else you're going to annihilate yourself. And maybe that's why we cut back some of our missiles. Yeah, and other scenarios, do these, I'll call them beings, do these entities, are we aware of these entities enough that they can go public instead of saying, you can't handle the truth, we can handle the truth? And going public with an innocuous thing like harmless beings that are visiting us just to keep in touch and everything's fine? Or do they consider us a species like we consider apes a species, or dolphins, or perhaps rodents, or perhaps insects? So that sort of thing I don't want to know about. If it's just the fact that they're visiting and they're trying to tell us to watch out for nuclears, they can come forward with that. The government should come forward to let us know, to ease our minds a bit. However, if it's the other scenarios, I just want them to come forward and lie to us and tell us the entities are nice beings and they just want to warn us about nuclear. I can't handle that truth, that we're insects to these people.
David?
You've asked us to speculate. I don't know. You probably don't know.
No, I don't.
But these missiles being shut down, Captain Salas described 2 flights that he's aware of. I described to you 1 flight of 10 missiles that I'm aware of. But I'm also aware of other launch officers who've described to me similar situations. So, it's not unique that him and I have been involved here. I mean, this was a situation that was occurring quite often when I served in 1966 and 67. And who knows that it's not still happening out there. There's no active officers of any kind that will come out and admit that right now.
I feel that we really do not have enough data. even now, to know exactly why this is happening. Because despite the number of cases where this does appear to have happened, there are thousands of missiles. And not all of them have been shut down, as far as we can tell. So if they're doing this, they're obviously not doing it uniformly. And I don't really feel that any researcher has enough data to know precisely what those motivations might be. They obviously, they seem to have demonstrated superiority over our technology, that's for sure. So at discrete moments, they seem to be able to do this, but they're not doing it uniformly. And they certainly haven't stopped all of the massive wars that have, run over the planet, so there are certain limits as to what they're willing to do as well.
Shalom, Kahala Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rukwadash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. We're the house of David, reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 1/3 of Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the UFOs, or as they're biblically known, the chariots of the Lord, right? And before we talk about the video we just watched, I want to read the scripture. This is 2 Ezra 4:37. By measure hath he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times. And he doth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled. Now, the video we just watched is of the citizen hearings on UFOs, right? It says, Congresswoman Darlene Hooley, why are UFOs shutting down nukes? And what she's referring to is incidents like this here. This is a recreation of a chariot as it came up to a ICBM launch. It shot what appeared like lightning at it, or a beam, the army soldier said, and basically the missile basically went out of control and was disengaged, right? Basically was disarmed. Now, this isn't the only event where this happened, so much so that there is a public hearing about this. Now, the people up here, all these retired military people, they were just here to give, as you heard them, their speculation. And none of these people here really know what's going on, right? And this video is a bit old. This happened before the Space Force was announced, so I'm guessing this is like pre-COVID period. So that being said, these people are blind to what truly is going on. You see, they think that these are just some outside extraterrestrials, as that one gentleman said, right? But they have no idea that these chariots are in fact the Lord. And the reason why they disabled this is not like the first guy who gave his opinion that they're there trying to be benevolent and they don't want us to kill each other off and they want us to do what's best for us. No. Right? Like the scripture just said, right? And he doth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled. So you see, the Lord, when you read the Bible, it is very clear that there is a particular script that is being played out. What is that script? It is basically the bringing up of a perfected race of people. That race would be the Israelites, the Negro, Latino, and Native Americans. Okay, when you get into the Bible, that's what the Bible is. It is the story of the filtering of the human, the human genome. Okay, basically, this is why the Lord has always chose one brother over another, and ultimately, it's at the very towards the end of the selection process when the Lord chose our forefather Jacob and changed his name to Israel. All our forefathers' children, the 12 tribes of Israel, were all of this chosen seed line. Okay, and the Lord, because not only has He now perfected our seed line, right, our genes and whatnot, but now he had to basically tune and test and put us to the test. Okay, just as it tells you in Judges, Judges 2:20, right, showing how us Israelites went off and ultimately how the Lord was going to put us into a test of sorts. Okay, this says Judges 2:20, and the anger of Yahweh Bashem Shai was hot against Israel, right, the Negro Latino Native Americans, and he said, because that this people hath transgressed my covenant which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died, and through them I may prove Israel whether they will keep the ways of Yahweh to walk therein as their fathers did keep it, or not. Therefore Yahweh left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hands of Joshua. Right? Now the point being here is that why, now that the Lord has finally chosen us Israelites, the Negro Latino Native Americans, as his chosen people, why didn't he just take us after that? Why didn't he just take us as soon as the 12 tribes had gotten big, right, during the time of King Solomon? Well, because the Lord had to put us through a sort of test, right? And that test had to play out through what we understand as, or know as, history, okay? And everything that took place, from the time of Joshua, our forefather, who conquered the land of Israel for us, to the time now, right? All the rise and downfall of nations, the captivities we've all gone through, to now the time of awakening, have all been for a set measure of time, right? Because why? Because the Lord has a particular script that needs to play out, right? Which now in this time is ultimately the perfectioning of the saints, okay? And that would be why we're currently living through here. And that I said all that to say this, that's why these chariots are there disabling these nukes, because they don't want Esau to basically mess up the game before it's over, right? They have to, these missiles, just like the Israelites having to go through history, were all set for a particular time to be used, right? For a particular time to go through everything. So again, that's why these so-called beings are disabling the nukes. It's not because they're trying to show us to not kill each other, or they're trying to show us to be better. No, the Lord is doing this because he is not ready to get to that part of the story yet, right? The part of the story where this comes in is we're close to it, but we're not there yet, right? This is going to happen after World War III really kicks off, after the mark of the beast is made mandatory. Now that being said, let's read this. This is Jeremiah 15:25. Yahweh Bashem Yahshai hath opened up his armory, and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignations. For this is the works of Yahweh Bashem Yahshai, power of hosts, in the land of the Chaldeans. Okay, the land of the Chaldeans is referring to America. Okay, the Chaldeans were the descendants of Nimrod, right, from Genesis 11, talking of the first king of the world after the great flood, whose nation, Babylon, was all into witchcraft, wizardry, and all that type of stuff, right? Where the Chaldeans were considered like the top wizards and warlocks and whatnot, right? And the thing is that America today would be the top witches of the world, okay? So when it says that the Lord has opened up his armory, that means that these nukes, these UFOs that this lady, this congresswoman, was asking, why are they disabling these things? Is because ultimately these are the weapons that the Lord has given Esau, Esau being the biblical name for the Caucasian race, so that way they could build these weapons, so that way they could later on be used against him right? What's the term, or what's the scripture say, right? He that rolleth or that rolls a rock, the Lord shall roll it back on him, or something like that, right? But the thing is that the Lord ultimately provided the technology, the passion, the drive that these scientists needed, right? Like in this movie Oppenheimer that's coming out fairly soon, right? All that was given by the Lord to these Edomites, so that way they could recreate his weapon and have it, so that way when the day of evil comes, right, the day that these nukes are going to be allowed to fly and devastate the world, right, that those were created because those are the weapons of the Lord's indignation, right? The Lord's righteous anger. That's what indignation is. It's righteous anger, right? To be rightfully angered at something that transgressed you. Okay, now that's ultimately what's going to come, and or when those nukes are going to be used, right? And again, like I said, none of those people on that whole board, right, regardless of it was Mike Gravel, that really good senator, none of them understood what these chariots were. They all thought they are little gray men, extraterrestrials, right? Not having an idea of what they are. Well, as you can see here in these images, right, and all these scriptures, these are all scriptures that refer to the chariots of the Lord, right, which what we would call today UFOs. Okay, now a lot of these chariots that we're seeing today that appear metallic in nature, or they have what you would consider like worldly traits, right, where they fly and they don't just simply zip out of the way, those are more likely Esau's Black Ops secret operational planes, which he's been developing for decades, and he's finally starting to bring out, so that way he could lie and bring forth a false invasion or a false UFO narrative. Okay, and this is going to allow him to then weaponize space. Okay, this is Proverbs 15:3. The eyes of Yahweh are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. And this is why we're seeing all these chariots around the world, because the eyes of the Lord are talking about these so-called UFOs, right? Those little globes of light, like in this video here, where somebody actually caught the chariots actually creating crop circles.
From this height, Oliver's Castle, one of the most often debated observations, was made early one morning in 1996. A young man who had spent the night here and had brought a video camera with him was woken during early dawn by a humming sound.
Here I'm standing at Oliver's Castle, at precisely the same spot as John Whaley was standing in August 1996, when he supposedly, for the first time in history, managed to film the creation of a crop circle.
That the crop circle was not here on the previous day but had appeared on the following morning was a fact. That John Whaley was here at dawn could be confirmed by a military patrol that happened to be jogging by at the time. John went to the local pub later that same day and showed his film to the people there. Even so, many believe that he had managed to manipulate the film with computer animation in the meantime, something that computer animation experts doubt. To overlay a perfect animation over a handheld unstable.
So those right there, those two dots, those are actually chariots of the Lord. See, this is what the true chariots of the Lord look like, unlike things like this, right? This is this here would be considered. These would be considered like Esau's ships, right? Basically, the ships that the left-hand angels or so-called demons helped Esau create. And that's another thing too. This might even be a fake video because this cockpit looks like a 3D image. But like I said, chariots that look like this would actually be these false chariots of Esau. See, See, the chariots don't actually look like that, man. They look like globes of light, okay? But this is what Esau has, items like this, and this is what he's going to bring out to forward that Project Bluebeam, the fake alien invasion, and the reasoning what they're going to need to weaponize space, right? But see, there's other phenomenons like this that shows you, man, that the eyes of the Lord are all over the world, and they do activities like this. So you see, there is likely going to be a chariot up here in the clouds, basically doing something, right? Probably observing something, but either way, making enough movement where the sun is reflecting off of it, right? But see, things like this are things of the chariots. These are things that we can see to observe the chariots, as they're doing their job. Because again, these chariots, when we see them around the world, it's not that they're just there so that way you can see them. No, they're out there, manipulating the minds of people, implanting thoughts, feelings. They're basically out here doing their work. They're maintaining the order. They're making sure that the world stays on script, so that way the events that were prophesied and which the Lord has commanded to happen. Okay, and when they're caught on videos like this, is because people happen to catch them while they're at work, okay?
Thing of the radar sensitivities, which means we're seeing more things than we would normally see.
What are we shooting down? Where did they come from?
Congress is going to conduct a careful bipartisan examination at these various incidents.
And the Biden administration announced a new interagency team dedicated to studying the high-flying unidentified objects and future policy related to them.
These devils right now, they're weaving a narrative that these chariots are going to be dangerous, right? That they don't know what they are and that they have the ability to shoot them down, which they do not. Esau's lying out of his teeth, like always. But he's going to make it seem like they've shot things out of the sky and they have the ability to do it. Because why? Because they need to be able to convince the people that they have a fighting chance against these chariots, okay? Or as they're going to make them seem as alien threats, okay? And this is why they release deceiving articles like this, right? A lot of you, Joachim, have probably seen this on Instagram, where these devils, they'll put out very misleading titles, but when you look at what they're actually talking about, they're not actually talking about aliens, right? It says here, before you make any type of assumptions, we need to make it clear that the general has never mentioned anything related to aliens in principle. He is talking about a new era of human technology that has been developed in space over the last decade, and even further than that, right? And we're going to read the article right now, but the whole point being is that these devils know exactly what they're doing, right? They put out very misleading headlines, because that's what majority of people would do. They read just the headlines or the first couple paragraphs, and notice that that bit of fact wasn't in there until maybe the third, fifth, sixth paragraph. So the point being is that they're trying through deception to mislead the people, to make them think that there is going to be threats from outer space, okay? So let's read this article. It says, Space Force boss acknowledges the U.S. will begin facing threats outside of Earth. This is definitely not a conspiracy theory, Space Force confirmed in a chilling in the U.S. government. It says the U.S. Space Force General B. Chance Saltzman is the second ever top chief at the new military branch that former President Donald Trump created during his time in office. Initially, this effort was ridiculed by the media and the general population due to all the stigma. Now, notice what that guy said in the first video I showed you, right? This Space Force was initially brought up and was going to be implemented by George W. Bush, right? Before the whole 9/11 event, but it didn't take place, and instead they started to push forward a black ops operation, and they started to get their ducks in a row because they had to go take care of business over in the Middle East, right, and start conquering that land. And why is that? Well, because prophecy had to play out. The temperature had to be rose over there, so that way the events of Armageddon could take place, and all the armies of the world could eventually meet up in the Middle East where Armageddon is going to take place, right? So back to this, it says the population due to the stigma attached to it, but Stoltzman issued a concerning warning at the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs, Colorado, this past week. It all happened right in the middle of all the activity related to unexplained aerial phenomenon, the UAPs, that's taken place since the start of 2023. He is convinced that the United States is entering a new era of space activity and that the threats will be vastly different.
I think the second part of your question was related to UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomenon, and that UAP task force. And as far as I'm concerned, or am knowledgeable about that, I do believe it does involve collaborative inputs and information exchange with all kinds of countries around the globe, because I think these are not just solely actions or events that have occurred within the confines of the United States. They've occurred globally, and I think we're collecting that information. We're sharing information. We view that as an open and transparent effort and activity through the United States Congress and executed by our UAP Task Force Office. And so I would encourage greater collaboration and cooperation in that, and particularly I think as we see various technologies that will help demystify or debunk or clarify. But I think it's also important. One of the reasons that we are doing this effort is because national security concerns are of paramount importance, and so is safety of flight and deconfliction and collision avoidance and issues to preserve and protect human life. So when we can better share and exchange information, I think that's better, much like we do in the International Civil Aviation Organization, or otherwise known as ICAO, or in any other international bodies as well. I think there's a fertile and important opportunity to be pursued there.
Notice he says that in the pursuit of protection of human life, you see what's going to more likely happen is that these devils are going to perform some sort of false flag event where they're going to shoot down a plane or something like that, and they're going to blame it on these so-called UAPs, and hence that's going to give them a reason to weaponize space. And how do we know this? Because it was revealed by this woman who used to work with Wernher von Braun, who was the Nazi scientist that was brought over here to America during Project Paperclip, which the CIA initiated, which ultimately led to the transferring of the Nazi space program to America, which later on became known as NASA. Let's watch this.
When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in early 74. At that time, von Braun was dying of cancer, but he assured me that he would live a few more years in order to tell me about the game that was being played, that game being the effort to weaponize space. to control the Earth from space and space itself. Von Braun's purpose in life during the last years of his life, his dying years, was to educate the public and decision makers about why space-based weapons are a dumb, dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, unworkable, undesirable idea. The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it, he said, is a lie. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there and too late.
And there you go, right? So out of these Edomites' own mouths, right, the Lord has caused them to fall upon their own sword, right? Their own, it's coming out of their own mouth, right? This is Zechariah 6:1. And I turned and lifted mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass, right? Besides these 4 chariots, right, which are those globes that you've seen, right, those glowing globes, right, these mountain of brass were basically this. Right? Notice it's so big that it goes over the horizon. Now this isn't a great, image, but see how this is going over the horizon? This looks kind of like a mountain of brass, right? But imagine if instead of it coming from the side, it's coming up from back here over the horizon, right? That's ultimately what Zechariah saw. Okay, so this just shows you that though these Edomites are going to pretend and bring forth a false alien invasion, that there is going to be a true alien invasion after that. But this true alien invasion is actually going to be the second coming of the Messiah, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, whose true Hebrew name is Yahweh Shai. And when that happens, the whole world is going to know that it's not fake. Because right now, a lot of people are calling out these so-called UFO sightings as fake. That they're calling them as Project Blue Beam. They're even saying that these are the private black ops planes that Esau's been working on. But in that time, when these chariots of the Lord show up, it's going to be very plain that these are real and that this literally is the Lord. Now, a lot of people are going to be afraid because they're not going to know that this is the Messiah. They're going to think that they are aliens, right? The world has been programmed and into believing so many of these little great aliens, the Independence Day movies, and all that, those false truths. That when this happens, a lot of people are going to be scared out their mind, right? So much so that's even recorded in the Bible. This is 2nd Ezra 15 and 34. Behold, clouds from the east and from the north onto the south, and they are very horrible to look upon, full of wrath and storm. And they shall smite one upon another, and they shall smite down a great multitude of stars upon the earth. Right? Basically lasers. They're going to basically bring devastation. Okay? Even their own star, and blood shall be from the sword onto the belly. Right? So the thing is that when these chariots show up, they're going to be a horrible sight. People are going to be scared, and why is that? Well, because they're going to be bringing destruction. Because besides them, chariots lifting up the elect, 144 plus the 1/3 of Israel, that's every 1 out of 3 Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and anybody whose father's lineage goes back to that bloodline, they're also going to be, shooting down these cities and decimating the armies of the world. Right? Here's another image that the brother GMS Word of Life shared. Man, look at this. These are the true chariots. These are the globes of light, right? The eyes of the Lord that go to and fro. See, so right now people are fascinated by this, right? So much so that they take photos and, be in all of them. But in that day, when there's thousands of these chariots in the sky, along with these humongous chariots, right? Those mountains of brass, the world's going to be freaking mortified, right? This is Wisdom of Solomon 5:2. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for, right? Meaning that when people see the Israelites being pulled up into these chariots, they're going to be amazed at how crazy the idea that these people are getting taken up into these chariots, right? But also they're going to have terrible fear because they're going to be seeing all the destruction, and the world is going to see something we've never seen on such a mass scale, right? This is going to be a crazy event that's going to take place, that's going to ultimately signify the end of Esau's world. Okay?
Yes. Isaac. Bro, Isaac. He's gone. Bro, what is that? Look at, you can see right through it. It's not a drone or anything.
See that? So this is what we're going to be seeing, thousands of these, right? They're going to look as stars of heaven, right? But they're ultimately the chariots of the Lord. And the big scare and the big event is going to be this, which was prophecy, which, by the way, the book of Revelation is a book of prophecy. Not like a lot of these dumb idiot Edomites who try to explain the book of Revelation, saying that it was just an analogy, right, for the Middle Ages and stuff. No, it's a book of prophecy of what's going to come to pass on the planet Earth in our near future. Okay, this is Revelations 12:7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, right? And prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven, right? And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Okay, now this ultimately is talking about the future space war that's going to happen in our atmosphere and even above in space, right? Because when the Lord comes, he's gonna one of his main angels, Michael the archangel, he's going to go ahead and come, and he's going to be leading the other angels and the other chariots to destroy Esau and his weaponry, right? Because you see where it says Michael and his angels? That's talking about the angels of heaven, okay? And they're going to be coming in so-called UFOs, right? Or those little white globes as you've seen them, right? And I'm sure they're not little, but you know, on film they look small, right? But they're going to be coming in that. And it says here, they fought against the dragon. Who's the dragon? The dragon is ultimately these Edomites, the Caucasian race, with all these, you know, secret space weapons that they're building, the secret black ops ships that they've been developing, that I've done videos on recently, you know, showing you what they look like, right? And the dragon fought and his angels. And again, the angels are ultimately going to just be all these nations that are gathered onto Esau, right? These Edomites, to help him fight against these outside extraterrestrial threats, right? Which they don't really want to come out and say it right now. They're just saying, oh, it's satellites and all this stuff. But realistically, these devils know what they're going to fight. They know that they're going to fight the Lord when He comes back. So either way, Akim, I just wanted to show you this. I wanted to, you know, so we all understand that these, you know, these chariots aren't brand new. They've been here, and they've always been here, right? They've always been watching over us from the beginning of time to now, right? But it's now that Esau can no longer hide it, because now they're showing up a lot more and they're being more active, okay? And Esau having to now explain away why he's always trying to hide these chariots from the world, now has to try to explain them by saying they're extraterrestrial and that they pose a threat and whatnot, so that way he can weaponize space and get ready to fight against the war or the Lord to fulfill this prophecy of the war in heaven. So hopefully this video was edifying. Until the next time, I want to give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rukok Radash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. Shalom.